Hi, I'm Anthony Iannarino, and yesterday I had the pleasure of being on Deb Calvert's radio show where she interviewed me, and I didn't know this before I got into it, but it was a call-in show, so people could call and ask questions. And one of the questions was, how do you persist in calling your dream client? How do you stay the course with them? And I told a story on that call that got one individual's attention, and he sent me an email. And the story I told was about a dream client that I had that I pursued, and I called this client, this prospect, every week for 76 weeks. Actually, I called him for 75 weeks. On the 76th week, he picked up the phone and answered my call. And I had persisted over the course of more than a year in calling him every single week because I knew that I could create value for him and his organization. And I knew that I was the right solution for him if only he would let me through to talk to him. And for more than a year, he never took my phone call, never returned a message. So when he answered, he said, "You've called me 1,000,000 times." And I said, "Well, actually, this is my 76th call. It wasn't 1,000,000 times." And he said, "Well, it felt like 1,000,000 calls to me. But if you come out right now, I'm happy to give you an order. I do need something." And I got in my car and I drove around the freeway and I went immediately to his location. And at that point, I won his business. There was nothing else to it except professional persistence. I left a full voicemail. I told him what I wanted. Over and over again, I asked if there was somebody else I could talk to. But this was the days when there weren't very many tools. There was the phone and there was references or referrals that you could get. There was mail, and there wasn't email at that time. You couldn't do that. So you had to persist with the tools that you had. Today you have better choices. So I want to talk to you about what you can do to be professionally persistent. And the listener that wrote me an email said, "How do I do something 78 times? I want to do that, but I don't know what could I do without driving people crazy." And his question is a good question because you want to be professionally persistent and not a nuisance. So here's what I think about this question. Think about this in terms of a campaign. Think about using every single medium to communicate with that prospect, and think about communicating value through every medium. So maybe it starts like this. You send a LinkedIn connection request and say, "Listen, I looked at your background. We share an interest in this thing. I found this article. I thought you might be interested in it. And I'm in this group with you, so I just wanted to say hello." This is no ask. This is just making yourself know, raising your hand and saying, "Look, I'm here." Maybe after that, you send an email introduction and say, "Look, we work with clients in this way. I want to share with you 2 or 3 things that we're finding that are really important to them, whether you ever talk to us or use us for anything at all or not." And that's what I mean by creating value. You're giving something of value away, whether your dream client buys anything from you or not. And then maybe after that, you pick up the phone and you ask for an introduction meeting where you're just going to sit down and have a 20-minute meet and greet. And I like the idea of a 20-minute meet and greet, and I think it's effective because it's such a low-level commitment. Your customer doesn't have to commit to spending 2 hours with you. And it's easy for them to say yes because they know at any time they can pull the emergency hatch and jump out and say, "Hey, I told you 20 minutes, it's not working for me," if you're not creating value. And then maybe you ask for an introduction from someone else if the call doesn't work. And so you're using email, you're using LinkedIn, you're sending white papers, you're sending case studies, and you think about, how do I lay out this campaign so it's about persistent value, value, every time sharing some insight, every time asking for a meeting in a way that says, if you meet with me, I'm going to leave you with something of value, whether you ever buy from me or not. And that's the key to being professionally persistent. So as you go into this week, I promised you a Sunday video. This is that Sunday video. Think about how you lay out that campaign. How do you structure it? What mediums are you going to choose to communicate directly with your dream client in lots of different ways? You don't have to hammer them on the phone 78 times, although sometimes that might be necessary. And then what are you going to communicate? How are you going to contribute value to this conversation and prove that you have the ability to show up and create value for that customer in a way that they can look at you and say, "This is the kind of person we're looking for to help us with our next challenge." I'm Anthony Iannarino. I'll see you back here next week.